My name is Klara. I'm a music producer from Gothenburg, Sweden, and I'm making this tutorial for the Swedish education or program that's called Vem Kan bli Producent, which translates into Who Can Become a Producer. It's an education for female, non-binaries, and transgender people, and it sets in Malmö, Stockholm, and Gothenburg, and it's education in music production. It's arranged by Popkollo, and we're making these tutorials also thanks to ABF. So today we're going to talk about how to set up a mix in Pro Tools. It can also apply to other DAWs, but I work in Pro Tools because it's really free. There's nothing that the program does automatically, so you can choose exactly how you want it and adjust it to your needs. So I'm going to show you how I do when I set up my mix session to be as fluent and intuitive and flexible as possible. So that when I mix, I don't have to think about all those things, all those technical routing issues. I'm just gonna mix. So let's start. Okay, so I've just imported a multitrack, a couple of audio files for a song into my session. It looks like this. So the first thing that I do is that I group them into the groups that I think are useful to work with. So I'm going to start to myself just color code them so that I know which instruments are in which group. And to begin with, I have the drums here, the kick, the percussion, and a crash. So if I click on this area, the blue area here, I can choose among the different colors, and I'm going to make them red. And then I have two types of bass parts, one for the verse and one for the chorus, and I'm really used to putting the instruments that come in first over the ones that come in after. So I'm going to put this bass here before this one because this starts after. And then I'm going to make them green. And then I have some pads, one for the verse and two for the chorus. And I'm going to make them pink. And then I have a couple of piano tracks. And I can make them this type of brown. And then I have some white noise, which I probably can put actually together with the pads because these are all synthesizers. And this is a synthesizer. And I might want to process them quite the same, I think. So I'm going to put it here. And then I have the vocal tracks. I have a choir, I have some overdubs, and I have some harmonies for the chorus. And I usually put the vocal over the choir parts and the overdubs. And I can make it blue. And then I usually put the dubs right under the vocal, like this. And they can be dark blue, and the choir as well. Something like this. Now I can see very clearly, also in this tracks list that I have here, I can see very clearly all of my groups. And the next step that I do is that I count them. I have one group of drums, I have one group of basses, I have one group of pianos or pads, and then one group of pianos, and then a lead vocal track, and then I have some choir tracks. So all in all, I have 6 groups, which would mean that I will have to make 6 aux tracks. And an aux track is a bus that you can send all your audio tracks into. So if I send all of my drums into my drum aux, they will all be collected there, and then I can process them in the same way. And then I can send the signal onward onto my master track or whatever I would like to make. So I'm going to create a couple of aux tracks, 6 stereo aux tracks, and I choose aux here. And then I will also want to create 6 VCA master tracks. A VCA track is a track that doesn't really deal with any audio. The only thing it does is that it controls volume. So if you have a group of instruments, for example, the drums, you can control the volume of the group as a group, but you don't really affect anything else. You can't, for example, you can't put a plugin on a VCA master, but it can be nice to just be able to just solo or lower or higher the volume of all the tracks at the same time. I think it's not something that you have to have, but I gotten used to it. It makes you work faster. I'm gonna create 6 VCA master tracks, and then I am going to create a master fader, and I'll take the rest later. And I'm going to start by just naming them. So this is the drums, and we have the bass, we have pads, we have piano, we have lead vocal, and we have backing vocals. And I do the same for these ones. And then I go and I mark the drum aux, and I mark my drum VCA track, and I drag them. And then I have my bass. So I put them all under the group of tracks that I want to group. And my piano. And my lead vocal. And then I have my choir buses here. So now I can really see the different groups. And I have the VCA track underneath here, and I have my aux. And then what I like with the VCA tracks is that you can do like general automation for the entire instrument group. So you can choose to do it like before the plugins that you put on your aux track. One last thing that I sometimes do before I start mixing, and that is creating 6 additional auxes that I put on the end of my session down here before the master. And I used to color them purple, actually. And these are also instrument groups. I'm gonna name these drum bass, bass bass, actually in this step what I usually do is I don't have like a lead vocal and a choir bass. I just have a all vocals bass, which can be useful. So I just need 5 of them. I can delete this one. And now that I have all the tracks that I need, I'm gonna start to do some routing. And I might explain why I made these ones. It's because to get just an additional layer of automation that goes like after the plugins. For example, I've had made some processing here on my backing vocal bus, and if I start doing some automation here or here, it will happen before the plugins that I have put on my bus here. If I have like a compressor here, I want it to work constantly the same amount of gain reduction. If I start automating the volume of this bus track, it's going to be shifting, like the signal coming into the compressor will shift. But if I do it instead on my bass bus here, it will happen after the plugin, and it will be like a constant level of the effects that I put on. And it can be super useful if you want to just, for the chorus in the end, for example, just pull up the bass a bit or whatever you like to do. So now I'm going to start doing my actual routing. And for that, I go to Setup, I/O, and I can see all of my buses here. And you see I've already made like some mapping of the buses, but I'm going to do it like for new. So I'm just going to start like making my drum bus, my bass, my pad, my piano, my lead vocal, my backing vocals, and then I will have to make the drum bus, the bass bus, and then I will also add, I forgot actually to add a mix bus, which is like the final step before the master track. And the mix bus, I'm gonna put here a new stereo aux input, which I'm gonna call the mix bus here. And it's gonna be dark red. Okay, so now that I have all the tracks that I want, I'm gonna start doing the routing. And if I go to the menu here, all of the buses that I just did will show like this. So if I mark all of my drum tracks and then I hold in Option Shift, I can choose the drums, which they were already assigned to for some reason. And then while it's marked, I can press Command G and I will make a group out of my drums. And then I can go to this VCA menu and then I can choose my drum VCA. And then they're all in the same group and I can use my VCA fader to adjust the volume of all of my. I can also solo and then I will hear just the drums. And then if I go to my drum aux, I have to have the drum input, because if I have the output drums here and I want it to go through my drum aux, I have to put the input to drums and then the output, this is the tricky part, to the drum bus. And I'm gonna make the same for all of these. The bass, I press Option, Shift, and I will make them go out on the bass bus. And then I press Command G and I make it group and I assign it to the bass VCA. And they're assigned. And then I go to my bass aux. I put the bass as input and the bass bus as output. And then I go to these ones and all of them I want to go to my mix bus. So I make the output to mix bus and the mix bus I'm gonna put the input to mix bus and then the output to stereo output. So this is the final step of my routing. And all of these I have to assign the input. So the drum bus has to have the drum bus and the bass bus, pad bus, piano bus, all vocals. So now everything will go from the audio tracks into the group aux buses, and then it will go to the buses that I have down here, and then it will go to the mix bus, and then finally to the master, which allows me to have several layers of automation and volume control of all my groups individually. And a really important step in my routing now is to solo save all the aux tracks, because if I solo, for example, my crash here, it won't be heard because the drum aux won't be soloed as well, and that I can avoid by solo saving all of my aux tracks. And to do that in a simple way, I can just go to tracks and choose show only aux tracks, and then all my aux tracks will just pop up here, and then I solo save them by pressing Command and just clicking. So I just hold Command all this time and then I just click in all of my buses to solo save them. Otherwise I won't be able to solo anything without muting everything, basically. And then I can show all tracks again. The last thing that I do before I start mixing is that I create my effects buses. And I will probably modify them during my mixing, but I always have a startup with some effects buses that I often use. And I usually make 8 of them. And let's see, I usually put them before these buses. So the first one that I want is a hall reverb. I make a plate reverb, a room reverb, and then I make a slap delay, an echo, a chorus, and a distortion, and a parallel compression bus. And I'm gonna color them. I might want to make them yellow. And for this I have to go to my setup again and choose. You see I've already made this once, but I'm gonna make them again. Hall, I have plate, I have room, I have slap, I have echo, I have chorus, distortion, and I have parallel compression. So one nice thing that you can do in Pro Tools, if you have named all of your effects buses in the right order, like this, and you want to assign them to your actual buses, you can mark all of the tracks and then you hold in Command, Option, Shift. And then you go to the input and choose the first one in the list, like this, and they will just roll up like this. So hall, plate, room, slap, echo, chorus, distortion, compression, and they all match. This is a very fast and nice way to do it. And of course I have to solo save all of them. And then I will have to route them to a new bus that I haven't created yet. So I'm gonna go to setup, and the bus that I chose was called Lead Vox Reverb, and I'm gonna name it FX Master. Okay, so they all go to the FX Master bus, and then I have to create an aux for that bus. So a stereo aux that's called the FX Master track. Okay, this track is gonna go directly to my mix bus, which is here, and it's gonna be solo saved, and it's gonna have the input of FX Master track. And after that, I just put like my favorite hall reverb here on a very basic setting. I might do like a high pass filter before it, and the same with all the reverbs, the slap delay, the echo, the chorus. So I prepare for mixing. So when I start mixing, it will be super easy to just send sounds to the effects that I want, and I don't have to think about so many things because everything is already prepared for my mix. I would probably recommend, if you do all of this work, to save it as a template. If you save as and then you delete all of your audio tracks, you can save the session as a template, and then you won't have to do all of this every time you start making a mix. You can just import your audio tracks and then assign them to the different groups that you usually use. So if you have like a general set of instruments that you usually work with, I would recommend to create a template like this that you can use instead of doing all of this routing every time you set up your mix. So that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.